So the inspiration behind Run Rebel, so a couple of things really. I mean, it's not 100% autobiographical, but there's definitely a lot of me in there. A lot of my teenage years, a lot of sort of what I went through, kind of my family situation as well. And it's also partly inspired by my work in the community as well. So I have an organisation, a not-for-profit organisation, and I work with primarily women and girls from marginalised backgrounds. And I was working with a group of women who were survivors of domestic violence around the same time that I was thinking of this novel. I hadn't started writing it, but I was thinking about it. And domestic violence is a kind of like strong theme throughout the novel as well. So yeah, I was kind of inspired by my own personal life experiences, my work in the community, and it just felt like I wanted to write this story that for my teenage self, really, the kind of story that I wish that I'd read when I was a teenager, something that I may have seen myself, and it might have been something that might have helped me back in the day. So yeah, so a couple of things really. But honestly, when it came down to it, I think I was just writing the story that I wish I'd had when I was a teenager, to be honest. Yeah, there's been a few challenges which I wasn't kind of ready for. I honestly thought, because I've written plays before, I thought it was going to be an easier process. I was like, well, I know this story. I'm not reinventing the wheel. Do you know what I mean? Like it's my story. I just take what's in the book and just put it onto a page, and it should work, right? No, it's a whole nother thing. So yes, that's been really interesting. So for instance, a lot of the things that are in the book, that drive the book don't necessarily drive the play. And a book, obviously, like, well, the audio book, for instance, is nearly 6 hours long. So it can't just be a direct translation from everything that's in the novel. You have to kind of condense it into, okay, so what's the best 2 hours? What's the 2 hour version? So it's been interesting finding, like, well, which bits do you keep, which bits don't you keep? So you have to kind of what we call kind of like kill your darlings. So you have to kind of get rid of a lot of stuff that you really love and you think's really important. But again, it's like we're constantly having this conversation of like, that works in the book, it doesn't necessarily drive the play. And then there's this whole other thing which I wasn't quite ready for, which was making characters in the book that I just mentioned or are like really small and like giving them a proper story. And weirdly, that wasn't needed for the novel, but you need that on stage. So for instance, there's a character called Ruby, who's Amber's sister, and her husband Jazz is barely given a voice in the novel. But now they have 3 really lovely scenes together, and Jazz has a really lovely like story arc. And the friends as well, they're given a much bigger sort of platform on stage. So yeah, it's about creating something that's a full ensemble piece, because obviously the book is like, well, it's just Amber's voice all the way through. So how do you take that, but then also give that voice to 6 other people? So yeah, so quite a few challenges, but I'm better for it. I think if I ever do it again, I'll know what I'm doing. So it's all good. I mean, partly it is partly. So she still has a lot of pieces of sections of verse from the novel still find their way into the play, actually. It's funny, it's gone through lots of stages. So I think we're probably on like draft 5 now. And the first draft was very much from Amber's perspective. And it was just this like chorus of characters that were very, very small. Then I went like the other way. Then I took all the verse away from Amber, and Amber actually wasn't really saying much, and the chorus were telling her story. And now I've gone back to it's kind of halfway between the two. So Amber is still, a lot of the verse that's in the book, Amber is still saying that, but it is half other people owning their story and having their own character journeys, actually. So I think it's at a good half and half point now, and I think that works really well. I hope, anyway. Well, in terms of the whole physical stage action, that's not me, sort of. Like, I'm not really thinking about that. Well, that's a lie. I kind of do think about it, but I'm also really aware that any piece of art that you're making So in this case, a theatre show, it's a collaboration. So I know that I've just put the sections of verse that I think carry the story forward, and now it's up to the designer, the director, the movement director, all these other people that are now coming in. They're the ones that are going to make it physical. They're the ones that are doing all of that, and I'm really happy to kind of let go of it in that way. I'm like, here's the script. I feel like it's almost like just only one part of the show. There's all this other stuff that's kind of come in that's going to make the show even better. You know, all these other layers of designers and directors and stuff. So yeah, I don't know how it's going to work physically. We've had conversations in the room, but I haven't seen anything. So I'm just as excited as everybody else. We'll see. Yeah, I think the main theme for Run Rebel is for anybody who sort of feels that they've been downtrodden, anybody who sort of feels like their dreams can't come true, somebody who feels like an underdog. Like I think Amber does feel like an underdog compared to everybody else. You know, even her friends, like she loves them, but they don't understand her background. They're not from the same sort of estate, and they don't have the same sort of upbringing that she's had. And it's about sort of fighting for the life that you want to live, and knowing that it doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, you know, the family situation that you might be in, your dreams can come true. And to fight for the life that you want to live. That was my main theme in the book. I still think that's the main theme in the play for me. But you know what? Art is just one of those things that it can mean so many different things to so many different people. And if you watch it and you're sort of thinking, oh, but no, sibling relationships come out really strong for me, and or the theme of like, I don't know, friendships or whatever, or, you know, whatever it is, I'm aware that just because that's my main theme, like just watch it and watch it with, you know, through your own eyes, and let's just see what you think. And it can mean anything to you. Yeah. Yes, I have many beliefs on the power of exercise. So my not-for-profit organisation, Run the World, I sort of merge physical fitness and theatre together, and use that as a means to empower, like I said, primarily women and girls from marginalised backgrounds. So my other job, so when I used to be an actor, still am, but I write more than I act these days. My other job was I used to work as a personal trainer. So I would go into people's homes and take them through exercise sessions and stuff. And I did this alongside acting jobs and stuff. So I've always kind of been a real advocate for how physical fitness can help you with your mental health, and obviously just your physical health as well. But like more and more over the years, I've sort of realised it's more so your mental health, and your mental health is so important. And it's really helped me just in just through my life, helping me deal with grief, or just sort of, you know, those days where you're just not feeling very good. And then if you manage to take yourself out for a walk or a swim or a run or whatever type of exercise it is that you want to do and you enjoy doing, it can turn your entire day around. So again, I think when I thought of the book Run Rebel, I remember writing in my journal when I had the seed of the idea, young girl who loves to run, but she's from a difficult home life. Running helps her. Like, it was literally like, you wouldn't think that would ever become a book. Then that became the book. So really in this book, I've sort of realised through this conversation, I've just put all my sort of like loves together, really, and just put them into a story. Yeah. So yeah, I've kind of gone about that in a bit of a roundabout way, but yeah, I'm a massive advocate of sport and mental health. I think I had a loose idea. You know, I remember sort of like in the really early days talking to Tessa, the director, and I was sort of saying, oh, I can really imagine this being like really physical and stuff. And we were sort of getting quite excited about like, yeah, what the running would look like on stage. So I had a very sort of like loose idea that it would be short, quick scenes that sort of flow into each other. It's not, I knew that it wouldn't be a traditional play in that sense. And it's definitely not a traditional play with traditional scenes. It's very short scenes, and they all kind of like flow into one another, and there's a lot of physicality. But in terms of what that physicality actually looked like and what that really meant, I didn't really know. And also, I'm a real fan of sort of like things being collaborative. I'm not a writer. Even like writing the novel, which you would probably think was probably a little bit more solitary. I mean, it is, but then you're working with editors at Penguin, and you're going back and forth, and it's a whole team effort, really, at the end, even a book. So I'm really happy to like have my own little ideas, but at the same time, I'm not kind of married to them, because I'm aware that there's a whole team of people who might have way better ideas than me. And we just keep that conversation going. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, the answer is yes, I had some loose ideas, by no means married to them. And I'm just really happy to always sort of give the work over and just go, what are your ideas? And then we can all just sort of bounce off each other. And that's great. Yeah. Yeah, so Amber is a teenage girl from the Midlands who is desperate to live her own life on her own terms. However, her home life is far from perfect, and the novel and the play explore the conflict of cultures between a challenging and at times abusive family life at home and her school life, which is full of friendships and teen crushes and this passion for athletics. And throughout the story, Amber has to learn to navigate these two opposing cultures and develop the strength to grow and build her own identity in the face of all these major obstacles. So what's really interesting about Amber is probably one of the most interesting things about her, is that you don't always like her. She's not always a very likable character. She's a bully. Is one of the main things. So what's really interesting about her is, well, how do you still have people on her side when actually she's really out of order for a large part of the story? And the answer to that is that I guess we get a window into her life and we see why she's behaving in that way. So we kind of have that empathy, even though we don't agree with what she's doing. So she's an interesting character because, not always likable, but sometimes our heroes aren't. Yeah, I think the text will change. I mean, it has already changed at this early stage. We've chopped about 10 pages off it, just after the first day of rehearsals, and inevitably there will be more changes. And I think that comes with, as soon as you start putting something on its feet and you're not just sitting around a table and just reading it, or like all of these months, me and Tessa, the director, have just been writing or just been reading it with each other. Soon as you get actors in a room and as soon as they're on their feet, loads of other stuff comes in. So it's like, oh, we actually don't need some of those lines, for example, because actually Amber can show that in physically in what she's doing on stage. So we could cut some of those lines, or maybe once the actors are on their feet as well and they're like rehearsing some scenes, especially in this play more than a more sort of like traditional play, because the scenes are so fluid and so short, there might be some swapping of scenes, like, suddenly we've sort of realized that these two scenes can probably merge together, and I just don't know. I'm just kind of like guessing. I know one of the rewrites has been actually that we've merged two scenes that were two separate scenes, and we've kind of put them together. So the dad and the mom are having one scene on one part of the stage, and actually Amber and her friends are talking another part of the stage. And they were two separate scenes, but we've kind of like merge the dialogue, so we get a bit of mom and dad, and then it goes over to Amber and Tara and David, and then a bit of mom and dad and Amber, Tara and David, and that's just really dynamic and it seems more sort of interesting. So I'm sure scenes might be swapped around, I'm sure scenes might merge in some clever way, and I'm sure there'll be some more cuts. So yeah.